Maya Torres had exactly 45 minutes to eat her lunch before her mother called her back into the living room to ruin her life. She was sitting at the kitchen counter with a bowl of pasta, shoes off, hair tied in a messy bun, watching a cooking video on her phone. She was 23 years old, worked as a bookkeeper for a small printing company in Chicago, and had absolutely zero plans for the evening except maybe watching a detective show and falling asleep on the couch. Then her mother walked in with that smile. That specific smile. The one that meant trouble. "Maya, honey, come to the living room. Your father and I need to talk to you." She put down her fork. Her stomach already felt strange. In the living room, her father, Gerald Torres, was sitting on the edge of the couch with his hands clasped together like a man about to confess something serious. Her older brother, Danny, was standing near the window, and he would not look at her. That was the second bad sign. "What is this?" Maya asked, looking between all of them. Her father cleared his throat. "You know the business has been struggling." "I know." They owned a small Italian restaurant in the South Side. The rent had gone up. The profits had gone down. She had helped them with their books for the past year. "We owe a debt," he said. "A significant one. To the Caruso family." Maya went completely still. Everyone in Chicago knew the Caruso name. They were not the kind of people you talked about at dinner. They were the kind of people who owned the dinner table, the restaurant, and probably the whole block. "Dad, what did you do?" "It was a loan," he said quickly. 2 years ago, to keep the restaurant open. And now they're calling it in." "How much?" He told her the number. Maya sat down. Her legs stopped working. "But that's not the worst part," Danny said quietly, still not looking at her. She turned to him slowly. "What is the worst part?" Her mother sat beside her and took her hand. "Marco Caruso, the youngest son, the one who runs the family now, he agreed to cancel the debt completely. He agreed to protect the restaurant. He agreed to let your father walk away clean." "In exchange for what?" Silence. "In exchange for what, Mom?" "A marriage," her father said. "He wants a bride from our family. A Torres girl," he said. "A real, traditional arrangement. It used to be done this way in the old times," he said. "And he wants to marry me?" Maya stood up. "He doesn't even know me." "He knows of us," her father said, and his voice broke just a little. "I told him we had a daughter." He said, "Fine." He said, 1 year. Just 1 year of marriage and then a quiet divorce, and the debt is gone and we are free. Maya stared at him, then at her mother, then at Danny, who finally looked at her. And she saw something in his face she had never seen before. Guilt. Real deep guilt. "There was one more thing," Danny said. His voice was very low. "When they asked about you, I said something stupid. I said you were not exactly the marrying type. I said you were big, heavy, that you were not what they were probably expecting." Maya felt the words land on her chest like stones. "You called me the fat one," she said. It was not a question. Danny closed his eyes. "I thought it would get us out of the deal. I thought he would say no and find someone else. And he said it didn't matter. He said fine. He said send her." The room was quiet for a long moment. Maya looked at her family. Her father's shaking hands. Her mother's red eyes. Her brother's bowed head. She thought about the restaurant. She thought about the years her parents had worked 7 days a week. She thought about her mother cooking at 5 in the morning and her father fixing chairs at midnight. She looked at her pasta, still on the counter, going cold. "When does he want to meet?" she asked. Her father looked up. "Tomorrow." Maya nodded slowly. She walked back to the kitchen, picked up her bowl and put it in the sink. "I'm going to bed," she said. "We'll talk in the morning." She did not cry until she reached her room and locked the door. She sat on the edge of her bed in the dark and pressed her hands together between her knees. She was not crying because she was scared. She was not crying because of the marriage. She was crying because her own brother had described her to a stranger as a joke. As the thing they were sending because no one better was available. As the backup option that no one wanted to pick. She had spent her whole life being the girl who was good at her job, good to her family, good at laughing things off. She had never once asked anyone to defend her. But tonight, in the dark, she let herself feel it. All of it. She fell asleep with her shoes still on, and when she woke at 3 in the morning, she made a quiet decision. She was going to walk into that meeting tomorrow and she was going to be exactly herself. Not smaller. Not apologetic. Not the joke. If Marco Caruso had a problem with that, he could find someone else. And if he did not have a problem with that, well, she would figure out that part when she got there. The Caruso building was not what Maya expected. She had imagined something dark, dramatic, stone walls and men in suits with earpieces standing at every corner. She had imagined walking into something out of a gangster movie, all shadows and cigarette smoke and dangerous silences. Instead, the address her father was given led to a tall glass tower in the River North neighborhood. The lobby had marble floors and a reception desk and real flowers in a tall vase. A man in a navy suit greeted them at the elevator and said nothing the whole ride up. Maya had dressed carefully that morning. Not to impress anyone. She had told herself that very firmly in the mirror. She wore a deep green wrap dress that she liked because it was comfortable and because green was her color. Her hair was down. She wore small gold earrings that had belonged to her grandmother. Her father was with her. Her mother had stayed home because she said she could not bear to watch. Danny had not been invited. Maya had been very clear about that. They were shown into a large room on the 14th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A long conference table. A view of the Chicago River that was honestly stunning on a clear morning like this one. There was coffee already set out and a small tray of pastries which told her someone in this organization understood that nervous people did better with food. 3 men were already in the room. 2 of them were older, broad-shouldered, quiet. They stood near the wall like furniture that could suddenly decide to be very inconvenient. The third was sitting at the head of the table. Marco Caruso was not what Maya had expected either. She had expected someone older, heavier, scarred. The word Mafia boss in her head had painted a very specific picture, and this man did not match it at all. He was maybe 30, 31 at most. Dark hair, clean cut, no tie. He was wearing a simple black shirt with the sleeves rolled to the elbows. He had sharp features and dark eyes and the kind of stillness about him that meant he did not need to fill silence with words. He was the kind of man who had clearly decided at some point that if he was quiet and certain, people would figure out the rest themselves. He was looking at her as she walked in. Not the way men sometimes looked at her, with that quick flicker of assessment and dismissal, the up-down scan that communicated volumes without a single word. He was just looking, steady, like he was reading a room. Maya looked back. She had decided she would not be the first to look away. "Mr. Torres," Marco said, standing. He shook her father's hand. "Thank you for coming." Then he looked at Maya. "Maya Torres," he said. "That's me," she said. A small pause. "Please sit down." They sat. One of the older men placed folders on the table. The coffee was good. She tasted it and noted this with some relief because she had not slept well and needed it badly. Marco sat back down and folded his hands on the table. "I'll be direct. I believe in direct conversation. It saves time." "I appreciate that," Maya said. Her father glanced at her, slightly nervous. She ignored him. "The arrangement is simple," Marco said. 1 year. Legal marriage. You live in my residence during that time. At the end of the year, we separate quietly. Your family's debt is canceled. They are under my protection for the duration and for 2 years after. "And what do you get out of it?" Maya asked. Something shifted in his expression. Not a smile exactly. More like he had expected a different question from her. "My grandfather left a condition in his will. A married heir inherits control of the full estate. Without it, the estate goes into a trust managed by lawyers until I'm 40. I'm 31. I have no interest in waiting 9 years for what is already mine." Maya nodded slowly. "So this is business for you." "Everything is business," he said. "But I believe in fair business. You will want for nothing. You will have your own space, your own schedule, your own account. I will not interfere with your life outside of what the arrangement requires." "Will you interfere with my job?" He tilted his head slightly. What do you do? I'm a bookkeeper. For a printing company on the north side. He looked at her like this was interesting information, not like it was disappointing. You can keep your job. Maya looked at her father. He was gripping his coffee cup with both hands, silent, hoping she would not ruin this. She looked back at Marco. My brother told you something about me, she said, when he was speaking with your people, when you were deciding whether to agree to this. Marco's expression did not change. He mentioned that you were not a typical choice. His words, not mine. He called me fat, she said, plain and simple. I want to know if that changes anything for you. If you were expecting someone different when you walked in here today. The room was very quiet. One of the men by the wall seemed to stop breathing. Marco looked at her for a long moment. It does not, he said. I'm not marrying you for a photograph. Maya held his gaze. She was looking for the lie in it. She searched carefully. She did not find one, which unsettled her more than a lie would have. Okay, she said. I have 3 conditions. Her father made a very soft sound of panic. Marco just said, tell me. Maya set her coffee cup down and sat up very straight. First, she said, I keep my apartment. I'll stay in your residence when it's necessary for appearances, but I keep my own place and I can go there whenever I need to. My own space is not negotiable. Marco nodded once. Done. Second, my family is protected, but my brother Danny gets nothing extra from this arrangement. No favors, no access, no special treatment because of my connection to you. He made me into a joke to try to save himself some discomfort, and I'm not going to let this deal reward that behavior. Something flickered in Marco's eyes. This time it was harder to read. Not disagreement. Something else. Done. Third. She paused. This one she had rehearsed the least. If you ever, at any point, treat me the way my brother described me to you, like I'm less than, like I'm a burden, like I'm something you settled for, I walk. Debt or no debt. Deal or no deal. I will walk out and you can fight your grandfather's lawyers yourself. Total silence. One of the men by the wall shifted his weight. Marco did not move at all. Then he said, those are fair conditions. I know they are. I have one condition of my own, he said. She raised her eyebrows. Go ahead. Honesty. If something bothers you, you tell me. If you need something, you say so. I don't do well with people who say one thing and mean another. I've had enough of that in my life to last me quite a while. If we're going to do this, I need us to be straight with each other at all times. Maya looked at him. I can do that. Good. He extended his hand across the table. She shook it. His grip was firm but not aggressive. His hand was warm. I'll have the paperwork drawn up by Friday, he said. We'll sign next week and proceed from there. As they stood to leave, one of the older men leaned toward Marco and said something in a low voice. Marco's response was too quiet to hear. But on the way to the elevator, Maya glanced back just once. Marco was still standing at the head of the table, watching her walk away. When their eyes met across the length of the room, he did not look away or look down. He gave a small, almost invisible nod. She faced forward again and stepped into the elevator. That went better than I expected, her father whispered beside her. Don't thank me yet, she said. The wedding was small. City Hall, a Tuesday morning in October, 6 people total including the clerk. Maya wore a cream blouse and dark slacks. Marco wore a dark suit. There were no flowers. There was no photographer. There was a clerk who read the words in a completely flat voice and then said you may kiss the bride in the same flat voice, like she had announced a bus departure. Marco looked at Maya. Maya looked at Marco. We don't have to, she said quietly. We don't, he agreed. He offered his hand instead. She took it. They shook formally, and somewhere behind them one of his men coughed in a way that was definitely covering a laugh. They signed the certificate. They walked out into the October air, which was cold and bright and smelled like the river. Marco's car was waiting. Long, black, very clean. I'll have someone bring your things to the residence tonight, he said. You can take the rest of the week to settle in. I'm working Thursday and Friday, she said. I know. I meant the evenings. He paused. There's a dinner Saturday. My family. It will be the first time they meet you. Maya felt the first real knot of nerves in her stomach since this whole thing started. Your family doesn't know the full details of the arrangement? They know we married quickly. They don't know the specifics. He opened the car door for her. My aunt will be there. She is a significant presence. I wanted to prepare you. What does that mean exactly? It means she will have opinions about everything, and she will share all of them immediately and without invitation. Maya got in. Sounds like my mom. She heard him almost laugh. Just almost. A small breath. The corner of his mouth. It was the best thing that had happened to her all week. The Caruso estate was the kind of place that made you want to straighten your posture just by looking at it from the gate. It was set back from the road in the northern suburbs, surrounded by old trees that had probably seen the Great Fire. The main house was brick and tall windows and warm amber light pouring from every room into the October dark. When Maya stepped out of the car, she could smell firewood burning somewhere inside, and something extraordinary was being cooked, and she could hear voices and laughter from the front rooms. She had dressed carefully. Dark burgundy dress, small heels, hair done nicely in a way she actually liked. Not performing. She just felt more grounded when she felt good about what she was wearing. Marco walked beside her to the front door. He had been quiet most of the drive, answering his phone twice and typing a few messages. But just before they reached the front steps, he stopped. She stopped too and looked at him. For the record, he said, low enough that only she could hear. You look good tonight. She blinked. What? You look like you belong here. I want you to remember that when my aunt starts talking. He pushed open the front door without further comment. She followed him inside, still deciding what her face was doing. The entrance hall was full of people, not just immediate family. There were at least 20 guests, conversations happening in every corner, children running through with no apparent destination, and the smell from the kitchen was genuinely extraordinary. A tall woman in her 60s arrived at them like a ship in full sail, arms already open. This was clearly the aunt. Marco! She kissed both his cheeks loudly and efficiently, then turned to Maya with eyes that moved from her face to her feet and back up again in approximately 3 seconds. And you must be the new wife. We have been hearing things about you, my dear. Good things, I hope, Maya said. Interesting things, Rosa said. Because of course her name was Rosa. She gave Marco a pointed look. You married fast. No engagement. No announcement. No celebration. Your grandfather would have had something to say about that. He's not here, Marco said pleasantly. Rosa made a sound that could have meant everything and nothing and then looped her arm through Maya's and began walking her toward the living room, talking the entire time about the family, the house, the history, the food, all without pausing for breath. Marco caught Maya's eye over Rosa's head with a look that said, I warned you, and also I am sorry, and also please survive this for both of us. Maya almost smiled. Rosa introduced her to cousins and second cousins and an uncle who ran a construction company and a great-uncle who was asleep in an armchair and 2 little girls who were Marco's nieces, his sister's daughters, who grabbed Maya's hands immediately and demanded she come meet the dog. She went. The dog was enormous and white and entirely enthusiastic and immediately put both front paws on her shoulders. He likes you, one of the little girls announced. I like him too, Maya said, genuinely, and scratched behind his ears until he leaned into her like a very large baby. She felt people watching from around the room. Not meanly, just curiously. She was the unknown, the sudden wife. She understood that. She let them look. She was not going to hide in a corner and she was not going to perform cheerfulness either. She was just going to be Maya Torres at a very large family dinner with a very big dog's paws on her shoulders. Rosa appeared beside her when the dog finally came down. You know, Rosa said in a much quieter voice now, I heard what your brother said when this arrangement was being discussed. Maya kept her face calm. How did you hear? This family hears many things. Rosa's voice was dry but not unkind. She patted Maya's hand. I want you to know I told Marco it was disgraceful. What that boy said about his own sister. It was, Maya agreed simply. Marco didn't like it either, Rosa said. She glanced across the room to where Marco was talking to two older men, but his eyes moved to Maya and Rosa at that same moment, as if he felt them looking. He doesn't show things easily. Never did, even as a child. But I know that face. He was angry. Dinner was served at the long table, and Maya was placed next to Marco. The food was extraordinary: roasted lamb, 3 kinds of pasta, bread so warm it steamed when you broke it. She ate happily and honestly, and at one point looked up to find Marco watching her. "What?" she said. "Nothing," he said. "Most people at this table pretend they're not hungry. It irritates me." "I am very hungry," she said. "This lamb is remarkable. I'll tell the cook." She looked at him. "You cook?" "Sometimes." A pause. "Not lamb." "What then?" "Eggs. Mostly." She laughed. A real one, surprised out of her, loud enough that the section of the table near them went slightly quiet for a moment. Not many people had apparently caused that specific sound from Marco Caruso over dinner. Rosa looked at Maya across the table with the expression of someone whose theory had just been confirmed. After dinner, when some guests had moved to the porch and some of the children had fallen asleep in various armchairs, Maya found herself standing near the tall windows with a cup of coffee, looking out at the dark garden. Marco appeared beside her. "How are you doing?" he asked. "Better than I thought," she said. "Your family is a lot, but they're not mean." "No, they're not mean." A pause. "Rosa approves of you. I could tell." "That's rare," he said quietly. "She did not approve of the last woman I brought here." Maya looked at him. This was the first personal thing he had said without being asked. "Who was that?" He looked out at the garden. "Someone I thought I knew well. It turned out I didn't know her at all." There was something in his voice that made her decide not to ask more. They stood together in comfortable quiet for a while. The fire crackled somewhere behind them. Outside, the trees moved slightly in the wind. Then a voice came from the doorway. "Marco!" They both turned. A man stood there. Older, well-dressed, cold eyes. Maya had not seen him at dinner. She would have remembered those eyes. Marco's body changed. Not dramatically, just subtly. His shoulders set differently. The relaxed quality of the last 10 minutes drained away completely. "Vincent," Marco said. "We need to talk," the man said. His eyes moved briefly to Maya, flat and assessing. "Alone." Marco looked at Maya. Something in his expression was both controlled and not. "Excuse me," he said quietly. He followed the man out. The door closed. Maya turned back to the window. The warmth of the evening was still in the room, but she did not feel it anymore. She did not know who Vincent was, but she recognized what she had seen in Marco's face when that man walked in. It was not fear. It was something more complicated than that. The look of someone who knew that certain people brought certain problems, and that those problems would need to be handled, and that handling them was going to cost something. She set her coffee cup down and decided she needed to know more about Vincent. And she was, after all, very good at finding things in numbers that other people missed. She would figure this out. Maya was not trying to eavesdrop. She had set her coffee cup down on the side table, intended to go find Rosa to say goodnight, and taken a wrong turn in the long main corridor. The house was large, and she did not know it yet, and the hallways all looked similar. She heard the voices through a half-open door near the end of the corridor. She should have turned around immediately. She did not turn around. "Getting sentimental in your old age, Marco. This girl is nobody. A bookkeeper from the South Side." That was Vincent's voice, smooth and flat, like a man reading a weather report about someone else's storm. "That's my wife you're describing." Marco's voice was very calm. The kind of calm that was not relaxed. The kind that meant everything underneath it was the opposite. A convenient wife. Don't confuse the arrangement for something it isn't. These things can get complicated when people start feeling things they shouldn't. "I'm not confused about anything. She doesn't belong in this family. People are already talking. People who matter. You could have chosen differently. You still can when the year is up. The year is not up, Marco said. And when it is, that is also not your concern. Everything that affects this family is my concern. I made agreements with your father. My father is gone, Marco said. Very quiet. You made agreements with him, not with me. A silence. She came to you as a joke, Vincent said. Her own brother described her as, I know exactly what her brother said. Marco's voice dropped another level. The kind of quiet that was far more dangerous than shouting. Her brother said something cruel about someone who had done nothing to deserve it. And I have not forgotten that, and I am not going to forget it. And I would strongly suggest that anyone in this family, or connected to this family, who repeats those words in my presence or within my hearing or within her hearing, is going to have a very serious problem with me personally. Am I being clear? A longer silence. You're making this harder than it needs to be, Vincent said. You can show yourself out, Marco said. Footsteps. Maya moved back fast, turned toward a bookshelf at the side of the hallway, and looked at the books on it like she was very interested in their spines. The door swung open fully. Vincent walked past her without a glance. His footsteps were sharp on the marble. A moment passed. Then Marco appeared in the hallway. He saw her standing by the bookshelf immediately. She looked at him. He looked at her. He did the math quickly. How much did you hear? Enough, she said. He rubbed a hand over his jaw once and said nothing for a moment. Vincent is my father's former partner, he said finally. He believes that entitles him to opinions about how I run things. Does it? No, she nodded. Then she said, You didn't have to do that. Defend me like that. It was just the two of you in that room. No one else to perform for. He looked at her steadily. I know. So why? Because it was the right thing, he said. Simply. No additions, no qualifications. Maya felt something move in her chest. Something small and careful, like something that had been tucked away for a long time deciding to open one eye. She turned back to the bookshelf so she had somewhere to look. These are all cookbooks, she noted. He blinked and looked at the shelf like he had forgotten it was there. My mother's. She loved to cook. Loved. She passed. 8 years ago. I'm sorry, Maya said. She meant it without performance. He nodded. They stood there for a moment in the hallway between the cookbooks and what had just happened, and then Rosa appeared at the other end of the corridor calling for them both loudly, and the moment closed over gently like water. But Maya carried it the whole drive home. She pressed her forehead against the cold car window and watched the city lights and thought about a man defending her in an empty room when there was no reason to accept that it was the right thing. She had not expected that. She genuinely had not. The following week was strange in a quiet way. Monday and Tuesday she went to work. She balanced accounts and answered emails, and her coworker Priya said she seemed distracted and Maya said she was fine. She did not mention that she was technically now married to one of the most powerful men in the state of Illinois. Tuesday evening she went to the apartment on the 42nd floor. Marco had given her the whole east wing. A bedroom, a sitting room, and a small office with a window seat that she fell in love with immediately. She put her grandmother's photograph on the desk. She arranged her books on the shelf by the window. She made the space hers. Marco came home at 8:30. He looked like a person who had been carrying something heavy all day. She was in the kitchen reading and eating crackers, and without really thinking she stood up and put the kettle on. She made 2 cups of tea and set one in front of him when he sat down. He looked at the cup, then at her. Thank you, he said. I was already making one, she said. Don't make it a thing. He almost smiled. Sure. They sat at the kitchen island in the quiet and drank their tea. It should have been uncomfortable. 2 strangers in a business arrangement sharing a Tuesday evening kitchen. It was not uncomfortable at all, and that fact alone kept her awake for an hour after she went to bed. 3 weeks into the marriage, someone took a photograph. Maya found out about it the way most people found out about things these days. Her phone lit up all at once while she was eating lunch at her desk. Priya leaned over and looked and made a face that meant this is bad. The photo had been taken outside the Caruso building. Maya was in it, returning from a morning errand, bag over her shoulder, hair a little windblown from the lake. The caption on the gossip page was 3 words and a question mark. Caruso's big surprise? The comments were worse than the caption. They were the kind of comments that certain corners of the internet produced automatically, like a factory running overnight. She read 4 of them before she put her phone face down on the table. She went to the bathroom, locked the stall door, and stood there for a count of 20. Then she breathed, fixed her expression, and went back to her desk. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marco. "I've seen it. Come home after work. We'll handle it." She typed back, "It's not your problem to handle." His reply came fast. "You're my wife. That makes it my problem." She looked at the message for a long time. Then she put her phone in her bag and finished her afternoon like a professional. But when she got to the apartment that evening and walked into the kitchen, something cracked. Not in a dramatic way. Not tears and shouting. More like the way old ice sounds when it starts to give quiet and then suddenly different. Marco was already there. His jacket was off. His sleeves were rolled up. And he had cooked. Actual pasta on the stove, garlic and olive oil and warmth filling the whole kitchen. And the table was set for 2, and he turned when she walked in and looked at her face and simply said nothing. He handed her a glass of water. He went back to the stove. She sat down and held the glass with both hands. "They called me a joke in the comments," she said. Her voice came out more even than she felt. "They said you must have lost a bet. That someone must have paid you." Marco turned from the stove. He looked at her directly. "I read them," he said. "I know you read them. Why would you do that to yourself?" "Because I needed to know exactly what was out there and exactly what you were dealing with." He turned off the burner. "The post will be down by morning. My team is already on it." He brought 2 plates to the table and sat across from her. "We're also putting out a formal statement and a proper photograph. On our terms, with your full approval on every detail." "My full approval," she repeated. "What you wear, what it says, how it looks. Nothing without your sign-off." She looked at him across the table. "Why do you keep doing that?" "Doing what?" "Handling things before I even have to ask." He was quiet for a moment. "Because I saw those comments too, Maya. And I didn't want you to carry that longer than you already had." She looked down at the pasta. It was perfect. She ate 2 full plates and he ate 1, and afterward they put on a movie, and she grabbed the remote first and chose something with a lot of car chases that she did not particularly care about but which required no emotional investment, which was exactly right. Marco sat at the other end of the couch, and at some point she looked over and he had fallen asleep sitting up, head tilted back, completely out. She watched him for a moment. The quiet of him. The strange, uncomplicated reality of sharing a couch with someone she had known for a month, who had just spent his evening handling her problems and making her pasta and then fallen asleep at 9:45. She got the blanket from the armchair and put it over him. Then she went to her room. She lay on her bed and looked at the ceiling. She was in trouble. Not the Caruso kind. The worst kind. The kind that had nothing to do with debt or arrangements or legal paperwork. The kind that had everything to do with a cup of tea left on a counter without ceremony, and a book found in a shop that no one had asked him to go to, and a voice in an empty hallway saying because it was the right thing. The formal photo went out Friday morning. Simple and clean. Maya in pale yellow, Marco in a dark suit, both looking directly at the camera. A short statement. Nothing dramatic. Just the fact of them. The response was immediate and enormous because Marco Caruso had never posted anything personal. Not once in 5 years. And now here was a wife, and not the kind anyone had expected, and the internet had opinions. Maya read some of the kind ones. She forwarded one to her mother. She blocked the accounts that were not kind and felt no guilt about it. Then she saw the message. It had come through the business contact form. It was addressed to Marco but had been flagged to her by his assistant because it mentioned her name. "Tell your wife she should know where she really stands. Ask him about Claudia." Maya stared at it for a long time. Then she walked to Marco's office and knocked. "Come in." She showed him her phone. She watched his face while he read it. His jaw tightened. Just once. "Who is Claudia?" she asked. He put her phone on the desk. "Close the door," he said. She did. Claudia Reeves had been Marco's fiancée 3 years ago. He told Maya the whole story. Straight, no omissions, the way he had promised on day one to be honest with her. Claudia came from a connected family on the East Coast. The engagement had been approved by everyone. Marco had not been in love the way people described in books, but he had thought that was fine. He had thought love was something you built slowly, deliberately, like a house. What built instead was the slow discovery that Claudia had been sharing information about Caruso business operations with a competing family. Not everything. Enough. Enough to cause two serious problems that had cost nearly a year to resolve and one relationship that Marco did not want to name. He had ended the engagement quietly. She had returned to the East Coast. She had not chosen to leave. He had made it clear she had to. "She's been watching the coverage about you and me," Marco said. "She doesn't like it." "Why?" Maya asked. "It's been 3 years. She moved on." "She moved, but not on," he said. "She thought the situation was more within her control than it turned out to be. She thought I might come back eventually." He looked at the desk. "I was not going to come back. But she held on to the possibility longer than was reasonable. And now she's sending messages to your wife through your business contact form." "To my wife," he said. There was something in how he said those two words. Not casual. Not performative. Just settled. "Is she dangerous?" Maya asked. He was quiet. That itself was an answer. "I have people watching the situation closely," he said. "That's not what I asked." "I know." He met her eyes. "I don't believe she would do anything direct. She's too careful, too strategic. But I am not going to pretend the message is harmless." Maya nodded. She let the information sit for a moment. "I need you to tell me things," she said. "I can't help you or help myself if I'm operating without information. I understand there are things I don't need to know. But when something involves me directly, I need to know." "You have my word," he said. "I know I do," she said, and it came out before she thought about it, and they both heard it, how certain she sounded, how much she already trusted him without planning to. The days that followed were tense in a quiet, controlled way. Maya worked. Marco handled things she was partially aware of. He checked in with her every evening. Not by obligation, she could feel the difference between obligation and something else. They ate together most nights. She learned he put too much pepper on everything. He learned she rearranged whatever she was sitting near. Books, coasters, remotes, without noticing she was doing it. She caught herself saving things to tell him during the day. A funny mistake in a client's accounts that turned out to be a 2-year-old typo that had quietly compounded into something spectacular. A conversation on the bus. Something Priya had said that was actually very insightful and also very funny at the same time. He listened the way people listened when they were actually listening. One evening he came home and left a book on the kitchen counter without comment and went to his office. She picked it up. It was the exact mystery novel she had mentioned once, in a 20-second conversation 3 weeks before. She had said she had been trying to find it. She had said it offhand. She had forgotten she said it. "Marco," she called. He appeared in the hallway. "Thank you," she said, holding up the book. "I was near a bookshop," he said. "You don't go near bookshops." "I went near one today." She hugged the book without meaning to. He watched her do it and then went back to his office. She stood in the kitchen holding a book and conducting a very serious private argument with herself about what was happening to her. Then her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. "You don't belong there." A woman's voice. Smooth, unhurried, completely certain. "He did this for paperwork, not for you. You're a placeholder. When the year ends, he'll let you go quietly and you'll go back to your little life and no one will remember you were ever there." Maya was quiet for 3 seconds. "Who is this?" she asked. The woman did not answer that question. "I know him better than you do. I know what he needs. And it isn't you." "Okay," Maya said. Her voice was very even. "Here's the thing. I know exactly what this arrangement is. I signed every page of it with my eyes open. But if you're calling to make me feel small so I leave, you picked the wrong person for that. I've been underestimated by people a lot closer to me than you are, and I'm still here. A pause. Don't call this number again. She hung up. She stood in the kitchen and breathed for 10 seconds. Then she walked down the hall to Marco's office and knocked. He opened the door. One look at her face. Claudia called me, she said. His expression went completely still. I handled it, she said quickly. I'm not scared. I'm not falling apart. But you said honesty, and this falls under honesty. He stepped back to let her into the office. He closed the door behind her. What did she say? The standard version. That I'm temporary. That I'm not what you need. Maya sat in the chair across from his desk. I've heard it before from different people. It doesn't work on me the way she thinks it does. He was looking at her with an expression she could not fully read. It had happened before. Those moments when something moved across his face and she got only the edge of it. Maya, he said. I'm okay, she said. I know you're okay, he said. That's not what I was going to say. She waited. I was going to say you don't have to pretend it didn't land at all. You're allowed to be affected by things. Even with me. Especially with me. She looked at him across his desk. Old habit, she said quietly. I know. He stood and crossed the room slowly and stopped very close to her. Not touching. Just close. I'm going to end this with Claudia. Finally and fully. I should have been clearer 3 years ago. Marco, you don't need to. She called my wife, he said very simply. There is no version of that I'm going to overlook. She looked up at him. He was right there, and the word wife in his voice was doing something that she had very strict internal policies about not thinking too hard about. Okay, she said. Okay, he said. Neither of them moved for a moment that lasted just a little too long to be accidental. Then his phone buzzed on the desk and both of them exhaled and she stood up and he answered the call and she went back to the kitchen and sat with her book. She read the same paragraph 5 times before she gave up and just looked out the window. Chicago spread out 42 floors below her, lit up and restless and enormous, and she thought, I came here as a placeholder and I don't feel like one anymore. The question was what she was going to do about that. The letter from the estate lawyers arrived on a Thursday in late September. 1 year, it said. The terms of the inheritance were satisfied. Marco Caruso had full and legal control of the Caruso estate. A formal documentation package would be prepared within 30 days for signatures. The divorce paperwork could be filed simultaneously, if that was the couple's wish. Maya read it twice. Then she turned it face down on the kitchen counter and went to work. She did not mention it that evening, or the day after, or the day after that. On the 4th day, she came home to find Marco already in the kitchen. He had made the same pasta from that first bad evening, garlic, olive oil, simple and warm, the way he sometimes did when something was sitting on him. She could always tell those evenings by the pasta. He cooked when he was thinking hard. He did not look at her when she walked in, but she saw the letter on the counter near the stove. Face up. He had found it. You've seen it, she said. Yes. She put her bag down and sat at the island. He brought the plates over and sat across from her. They ate in silence for a while, which was normal. The kind of silence they had built slowly without deciding to, where neither person felt the need to fill it. Then he said, You didn't say anything. About the letter. Neither did you. I was waiting for you. She looked up at him. What were you waiting for me to say? He set his fork down. I was waiting to see if you would bring it to me, or leave it somewhere obvious. Or, he stopped. You didn't mention it for 4 days. No, she said. I didn't. Why? She set her fork down too. She had been rehearsing this. She had rehearsed it on the bus and in the shower and in the middle of the night, and she still didn't have a clean version. Because I didn't want to, she said. I know what we signed. I know what the arrangement was. I walked in with my eyes open and I'd do it the same way again. But somewhere between the dinner and that hallway with the cookbooks and the book you found and the tea every night and the way you handled every single thing without making me feel like a problem to be managed. She looked at the table. I stopped wanting the year to end, and that was not part of the plan. The kitchen was very quiet. "Why is it embarrassing to say?" he asked. "Because you might not feel the same. And then I've made everything complicated when it doesn't need to be." "Maya." He waited until she looked at him. "I went to 3 bookshops looking for that novel." I remembered the exact title from a conversation that lasted less than 30 seconds. "I have never in my adult life gone to a bookshop on purpose. I don't enjoy bookshops." She stared at him. "I know how you take your coffee in the morning and how it changes at night. I know which side of the couch you like, and I stopped using it months ago without noticing I had done it." He exhaled once, slowly. "I have been in this apartment alone for 4 years, and it was quiet in a way I had decided was fine. And now it's not quiet anymore. It's something else. And I don't want to go back to the way it was before." Her throat was doing something she was trying very hard to manage. "I am not good at this," he said. He said it plainly, without apology or performance. "I didn't grow up watching people be good at it. The one time I tried it seriously, it ended badly, and I spent 3 years telling myself that was a reasonable outcome and I was fine with it." He looked at her directly. "I was not fine with it. I just had nothing better to compare it to yet." "Marco," she said. "I don't want to sign the divorce papers," he said. "I want to know if you want to stay. Not because of the arrangement. Not because of anything your family owes anyone. Because you want to be here." The kitchen was very still. Outside the tall windows, Chicago was doing its evening thing. Millions of lights coming on all at once as the sky went dark. The city hum of a place that never fully quieted down. Maya looked at him. This strange, quiet, careful man who showed nothing on his face until he decided to show everything. And when he did, he was completely direct about it, no performance, no safety net. She thought about the very first day. About the word fat sitting in that boardroom like something Danny had thrown into the room to wreck it. About her 3 conditions and his one. About Rosa and the enormous white dog and the nieces who grabbed her hands. About the hallway with her grandmother's cookbooks. About Vincent and the voice she was not supposed to hear and the words because it was the right thing. About tea on a Tuesday night. About a book left on a counter. About the blanket on the couch. About waking up this past year and feeling, for the first time in a very long time, like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. "I want to stay," she said. He exhaled. One small quiet breath. Like something he had been holding for a while had finally been put down somewhere safe. "Okay," he said. "Okay," she said. He reached across the table and took her hand. Not a handshake. Not a business gesture. Just her hand in his, warm and steady. And his thumb moved once across her knuckles, careful and sure. She turned her hand over and held his back. They finished dinner like that. One hand each on the table between the plates. She told him about a chaos situation at work involving 3 sets of wrong invoices and a very confused client. He told her about a meeting that had lasted 4 hours and resolved absolutely nothing. She laughed. He said something that made her laugh harder. The pasta went cold and neither of them noticed. Later, weeks later, months later, Rosa would tell anyone who would listen that she had known from the very first dinner. She had watched Marco watch Maya eat with the expression of a man who had stopped pretending to himself, and she had known it then and said nothing because some things had to find their own way. Later, Danny reached out with an apology so long and genuine that it took Maya 3 separate readings to get through it. She replied with 2 sentences. "I hear you. We can talk eventually." It was the most she could offer right then, and she decided it was enough. She would get to the rest in her own time. Later, Claudia stopped. The messages stopped, the indirect contact stopped, all of it simply stopped. Maya never learned the full details of how Marco handled it. She trusted him to have handled it directly and without drama, because that was who he was, and she had stopped needing to verify what she already knew. But right now, in this moment, it was just a Thursday evening in October in a kitchen that smelled like garlic and warmth, 42 floors above a city that was lighting up one window at a time. Marco was telling her something dry and funny about his morning, and she was laughing more than the story probably required, and his hand was still in hers on the table, and the Chicago lights were extraordinary through the tall windows, and her coffee was exactly right. She had been sent as the fat joke, the throwaway option, the punchline in her own brother's plan. And she had walked into a boardroom and laid down 3 conditions and shaken the hand of a man who had looked at her like she was worth looking at. And she had stayed worth looking at every day since, because she always had been. The joke had never been about her. It had always been about everyone who thought she wasn't enough. She hoped they were watching now.